Chicago's classic hits turn to 94.7 WLS. For traffic and weather info, tune in to 890 AM WLS for traffic and weather first on the 5s when you need it most.
On the Super Celebrity Hotline, General Stanley McChrystal is joining us. He's got a new book out, My Share of the Task. And it is it's a large book with small print. You know, I always look at that first, General. It's always a very important thing, but it's so easy to get through. It's a page turner as you tell your story. And I want you to have an opportunity here to talk about the three different phases of this, because I found it so fascinating. First, you at one point were the head of the Joint Special Operations Command as you were prosecuting the war on Al-Qaeda, specifically in Iraq. And we see this stuff now on television and in movies. How accurate is what we are seeing, whether it is Homeland or Zero Dark 30, things like that? I mean, it seems, you know, we don't see what's really going on there in the shadows. How specific is it?
Well, it's a great question. It's actually pretty accurate in the tone and the sense of it. It over-dramatizes things. If you watch something like Homeland, clearly, there's a little more story in there in reality. But if you break it apart and you see the complexity of the intelligence operations, you see some of the use of technology, it actually is, a little less drama. It's pretty accurate.
And General, you've seen Zero Dark 30, correct?
Yes, sir, I have.
And can I ask you, as a fellow movie critic, can you give me your rating on a letter grade for Zero Dark 30? In particular, a lot of the scenes that are drawing controversy, the waterboarding, and of course the nearly decade-long hunt for Bin Laden. Sure. First, as an entertainment movie, I saw it. I really enjoyed it, and so I give it a high rating on entertainment. Okay.
On the waterboarding part, I never was a participant in that, although people that I know say that it is not accurate, and it is an unfair depiction. So I guess I would just defer to their judgment. I do think it's useful to have the issue of torture raised, but I don't know. I'm told that it's not accurate there. The thing that's very accurate is in capturing the sense of a long manhunt, taking a lot of different people, all of contributing to it. You know, you saw the scene down at Host or the small base outside the Afghan town of Hope, where the double agent comes in with a suicide vest and kills a number of intelligence operatives. That I was in Afghanistan when that occurred, and that kind of thing, the efforts that were made, rang fairly true to me. Again, some of the little details may not have been. Finally, the actual raid, I'd been on countless night raids with our force, and it felt very much like raids I was on. I wasn't on that particular raid, but the operators acted maturely, like I saw operators act. They didn't over-dramatize what happened on the ground. I think they captured some of the complexity. So from that standpoint, it seemed very faithful to me.
Wow. That's high praise. It is an interesting thing. You know, we talk about the kind of people who volunteered after September 11th to be involved in the United States military. And, you know, you get out and you meet these people. Obviously, you worked with all of these people. It is a very, very impressive fighting force. But I wonder that now that we are 12 years into this engagement, or coming up on 12 years into the engagement in Afghanistan, is there weariness setting in, do you think, General?
I think there is a measure of weariness that's coming in. As you say, it's a very professional force that volunteered to be there and is proud to serve. But when you get on multiple combat tours, as most of the servicemen and women have, over time, it's hard. It pulls you away from your family many, many years. For people who have young children, that's difficult. Marriages hold together in most cases, but it's still, being apart is hard. So I think that to say that the force feels very significant stresses and strains would be very accurate.
And General, as you write in your book, you always wanted to be a soldier. Your father served in Korea and Vietnam. It was something you always wanted to do. Obviously, things didn't end for you in the way you wanted them to end. But in your book, you're a very stand-up guy. You don't blame any of your subordinates for what was said in the Rolling Stone article. You don't dispute it. You don't confirm the quotes. But I give you a lot of credit for addressing that head on and taking the responsibility.
Well, you're very kind. If I came to believe anything in my career, that is responsibility. And when you are a commander, I think you have very straightforward responsibility to accept whatever happens, whether or not you think it's fair. I thought it was important that I do that.
Let's talk a little bit about Al-Qaeda now. How significantly degraded do you think that particular institution is, and what should we be looking at as an emerging threat for us?
I think that Al-Qaeda as a centralized or centrally run organization has been very degraded. That element which is in western Pakistan still exists, but it has more of a representational effect than probably controlling operations. I think what we have to worry about is there's been a certain effect of fragmentation. You get the rise of Al-Qaeda in Yemen, the rise of Al-Qaeda in the Horn of Africa, Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb or North Africa. Each of those are fairly independent. They get their own money. They basically train their own leaders. They conduct their own operations. And what that means is you can't destroy the center part of Al-Qaeda and expect it to affect those parts significantly. And so as they pop up in new places or they spread, they all have to be dealt with and viewed as separate but related threats.
There's some talk today. There's some news breaking on a couple different fronts I'd like to get your reaction to. First of all, there's some talk about the end date for Afghanistan and whether or not we're going to leave any advisors behind after we're gone. You know, the bulk work of our troops will be out, but should we leave any kind of a force behind? What's your thought on that?
So I certainly would defer to the planners for what they decide to leave. I do think that the strategic partnership that President Obama offered to the Afghan people and the government in 2009 is very important. Whether it's a large number of forces or very small, depending upon how much, they need to feel like they've got an ally. They need to feel like they've got a friend. They increasingly must take responsibility for their own security, for developing their own government. But they're going to need some help, and they're going to need to know that they are not on their own in a very difficult region. And I think it's appropriate, both morally, because I think we have a moral responsibility there, but also geostrategically, because I think if we don't have Afghanistan stable, of course, Al-Qaeda could return, but also any number of things in that area could cause problems for the world in the fairly near future.
General, people are mentioning your name as a possible presidential candidate in 2016. Are you?
No, sir.
Not at all. Not a chance.
No, sir. No.
All right,
we're going to ask you this again next year, General, if you don't mind. That's okay.
Right. You know, how in the press, we have to ask that question of everybody in America once a week, because that's the only way that we can actually move forward. I know that you were just quoted actually as saying some stuff about the whole gun control issue in America as well, because you know, this is the debate, and this debate is going to be, you know, front and center next week when Joe Biden brings his recommendations to the public. What do you think we should be doing domestically about that?
Sure. I am not a Second Amendment expert, nor am I a gun control expert. What I am is very experienced in assault weapons. I've fired them, I've carried them in combat, and most importantly, I've seen what happens when an assault weapon strikes human flesh. The assault weapons we carry in the military appropriately are the best in the world, and they're extraordinarily lethal. And I don't want them in our schools. I don't want them on our streets. I have a family, and I think that we have got to figure out a way in America to face up to that particular issue. And I think that the larger discussion on gun control is something that should be a subject of national debate, not just a subject of argument.
Well, I got to say that the book, my share of the task, General Stanley McChrystal's new book, is really something. It's a spectacular read. Congratulations on that, sir, and thank you for your service to the country.
Sir, you're very kind. Thank you.
All right, General Stanley McChrystal.